6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. I am Chris Hadley-Force, joined virtually as always by Anna Forsyth at aforsyth03. I'm not going to talk about Matt. I'm not going to talk Adam.
No.
But I'm going to talk about Lou Brown. Want to know why? Because I hope before the game started tonight, Travis Green was down there in the dressing room going, okay, we won a game yesterday. And if we win today, it's called 2 in a row. And if we win again tomorrow, it's called a winning streak. It has happened before. Actually,
3 in a row, baby.
Saturday's game. Okay. We go back a week. And we're like, oh, they might get a win against the Jets, and that'll be good. But there ain't no way they're going to get points out of Toronto. The season is done. They go and throw out a stinker against the Jets, because why not? And then they go get 2 wins against Toronto, because why not? And now they figured out they can actually beat Montreal, and Toffoli doesn't have to actually score in a game. And I don't know what to think of this. The Canucks are still in a crazy spot.
Who needs Elias Pettersson?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. When we were recording last week's episode, we had no clue that Petey was obviously going to be out for a handful of games, day to day, just like their general manager. And holy smokes, the Canucks are doing crazy things. It's crazy times. It's good. It's a real good thing. We're living day to day. Is that the title of this week's episode, day to day?
Yeah, I guess so. I had come up with a title when we were still down to the Habs, so yeah, it needs a rewrite for sure.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we can think of a better one over the course of the next while as we're recording the episode, we will. Lots going on, though. And this last week was crazy. Why? Well, the Canucks were winning games they shouldn't have been winning. They lost a game they could have won. They've gotten goals and production from players we didn't realize were still on the roster. And arguably, Bubble Demko has returned. But that's not the craziest. The craziest might have been that Jim Benning press conference, if you could call it a press conference. It's opposed to a guy in front of a microphone who wasn't entirely sure why he was there and, lives things day to day. Or the fact that I joined Sportsnet 650 this past Saturday on Canucks Central and got to go and embarrass myself.
Oh, no. You were great. But what a week. What a week.
It's been a crazy week. So you know what? Let's not beat around the bush. Let's start rewinding this week that was. Going back to our last episode, we had given the Vancouver Canucks 1 win. We said we'd actually, I think, be excited if they got a point or 2 against Toronto, and we had conceptualized the possibility that might happen in one of the 2 games. If I recall correctly, I think we said it might be possible that neither one of us had faith it would happen.
Yeah. I mean, but at least we own our mistakes, right? Because we put it out in public that today, our bad. We had no faith. That was not a good take, it turns out.
Maybe that's the problem. The fact that when C4 completely becomes faithless, the Vancouver Canucks, having listened to our show, because we know they are some of our longest subscribers, they're like, nah, man, we're going to prove Chris and Anna wrong. Let's go and win it for, I don't know. Who would they be winning it for? Not us?
I mean, it doesn't seem to be us, because that's never worked before.
But it's crazy. I mean, we look back, and let's just sort of quickly recap what we saw. The game against the Winnipeg Jets, Vancouver didn't look out of it. until they were out of it. Like, yes, Winnipeg gets the first goal, and the way things go, no one's all too happy with that result. Obviously, there's also people who are already upset to see Holt be in net. But while I would have maybe considered starting Demko because it's the concept of back-to-back and you got to shut out the game before, statistically speaking, goaltenders crater when they play the second of two in a row.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the goalie thing, because I completely get all the people saying, from that performance, Holtby wasn't good enough, ride your starter, but you only have to look at Markstrom across the Rockies and what we did to Markstrom last year to see, and Markstrom's a pretty resilient goalie, but even he couldn't cope with all that pressure, and the way Demko's been playing, it's super active. I think they make the right call, even if it wasn't a good showing.
Well, but I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. The right call was Holtby starting. Again, I only sort of hedge it by saying if I started Demko, it's because he got me the shutout, and I'm trying to play the whole hand. But if you're going to play him back to back, are you not then going to play him against Toronto for both games? Exactly.
I think they were trying to give themselves the best chance against the Leafs, and hey, it paid off. So do you think that a tired Demko gets both of those wins?
Oh, no, not like the second game for sure. Maybe the first game, but not that second game. That second game, Anderson was playing well, and it wasn't for Demko keeping the Canucks in it. That game is over a lot earlier than it was. One thing I might suggest, though, and I think this is sort of the basis to why many were upset with the Holtby start, was most people were in line with our thoughts. That second Winnipeg game was the winner. You weren't going to go and get 2 wins out of Toronto. You might get one, so why don't you go with the sure thing and try to cash in a couple against the Jets. Didn't work out. Holtby didn't look entirely good, but let's give the guy credit. He had to come in and face a Jets team that was a little upset from the night before, and a Vancouver Canucks team that still hasn't understood the concept of team defense.
Exactly. I mean, I would have started Holtby before the game, and in hindsight, it looks like a good call. So maybe during I had some doubts, but yeah, it's partly on Holtby, partly on the team. It just wasn't a good game.
No. I think Petey got a goal. It was a nice goal, and that was pretty much it. Sure, Miller scored one late in the second to sort of balance out the fact that the Canucks gave up a late goal in the first. But at no point in time did I think that the Canucks had it in them to find a way back. And this continued that trend where the Vancouver Canucks, upon falling behind, lose the game. I mean, we're going to get to this sort of shift that's occurred in a moment, but the Vancouver Canucks have been horrible once they have a deficit and have struggled to get themselves back into the game, obviously, in turn try to win. So putting the Jets game to bed, we then got to see the Vancouver Canucks show up against the Toronto Maple Leafs in a game where I don't think anyone gave them a hope in hell, only to see Jake Virtanen become the greatest thing since sliced bread. Of all players that would show up and say, okay, guys, don't worry, I got this. Petey's out, no problem. Jake Virtanen. Who would have known that Petey's shadow is what's been holding Jake Virtanen back?
Yeah, I didn't predict that, that's for sure, but showcase Jake, Well, I mean, the effect of which was kind of ruined by, I don't know if it was Brendan Batchley who asked this or just reported Jake's answer, but he said that, Jake didn't take too kindly to being asked if he was being showcased.
Well,
you
can't
ask a player if they're being showcased.
Well, I actually think it might have been Farhan Lalji that asked it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just reading Batch's tweet on it.
So, but yeah, Jake is, talking about how he's playing well and not listening to the Twitter warriors.
I mean, if we as Canucks Twitter inspired him to do that,
oh no, it's not just Canucks Twitter, it's C4. C4 are the true Twitter warriors. We're now gonna be the longest running, best mediocre Canucks podcast full of 2 Twitter warriors. Our tagline is going to be every Vancouver Canucks Twitter cliche possible.
Yeah. Oh, I just find it so funny, like the way that some players just talk about the media like this one entity and Twitter like this one entity and they're both filled with negativity. It's hilarious. It's just so misunderstood.
Well, it's because you don't complain about stuff that's good. I mean, for those who turned into instead of the anthems our pre-show for exclusively for our patrons, we actually talked about this concept of tipping for service, and you consider when is it that you complain or you speak up. It's often about the bad service or the negative service, but very rarely about the good, which is unfortunate, right? But that's
cope.
Exactly. Well, I think that's a coping mechanism from the players. They don't, if it's good and they're being showered with praise, they don't speak up. In fact, they're told to be humble about it. But when it's negative, they're told to ignore it.
Very hockey, it has to be said. Very Canadian, humble.
It's part of the code.
Yeah.
Yar.
Boring.
It's the code. I mean, honestly, hockey was written by pirates because they talk about the code all the time.
Oh, like the pirate code? I did have Pirates of the Caribbean theme song stuck in my head earlier. Maybe that was why. Yeah. We'll get taken off YouTube.
DMCA'd, boom, just like that. But looking at, Jake Virtanen showcasing himself well, you could argue that some of the opportunity that's provided to him is based on the fact that he's playing top line. Well, I don't want to say top line minutes, but he's getting top line minutes. And this might be because Petey's out. It might be the opportunity that he's been waiting for. And I know he's still taking heat. We'll get into sort of some of the heat he was taking this evening. But one might be able to suggest that he's been a contributing factor in all three of these Vancouver Canucks wins. That game, he gets himself 2 goals. Should have been able to get him a third, but Travis wouldn't put him on the ice with an empty net until later on.
And Jody Benn is selfish.
Oh, gosh, so selfish. But we then go into the game on Saturday when Jake Virtanen's butt pretty much won the game.
I was dying laughing. I thought, people were joking about Leafs Twitter. And then they were freaking out about it. I mean, don't get me wrong. That game was badly called. And the game tonight wasn't great either. But that was not the issue. Jake Virtanen's butt is not the issue.
What are you talking about? His butt won the Vancouver Canucks the game. Somehow it scored 2 goals. No, I mean, when we look at the actual game, on Saturday, the Maple Leafs came out with Freddie Anderson, their number 1 goaltender. And while the Canucks got the first goal, only, 4.5 minutes into the first, on the power play, it was then sort of Toronto deciding we're going to go and exercise our strength on the ice. Tavares getting a goal to tie it up in the first, and then early in the second, Vesey scores, puts the Leafs ahead. And at that point, I'm thinking, oh, well, she's done. There's that thought in my mind that this one is over, simply because, one, number 1 goaltender, the fact that the Leafs are a top team in the NHL, let alone the North Division. And we've seen this story before.
Yeah,
the Vancouver Canucks fall behind and can't find a way to win.
Yeah, and we've seen it from Toronto where I just went really English on that, Toronto.
Toronto.
Anyway, we've seen it from the Leafs before where they just put in the exact amount of effort they need to win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they don't have to dominate the whole game. They just put enough effort in to win. Canucks did not look from, midway through the first until midway through the third. They did not look like scoring again.
No. Well, and on that note, midway-ish through the second period, Rooster takes himself a bad penalty. That cross-checking penalty was a bad penalty to take. You got the number 1 power play coming out onto the ice. You're already down a goal. And if it wasn't for the Vancouver Canucks frustrating the Maple Leafs is the best way I could describe it. And Demko making a couple of key saves. I think that's over, but it's almost as if we started to see a shift in the team. They're like, I think we're still in this. We can hold on. When the Vancouver Canucks get that power play goal after Nylander threw the puck over the glass, which almost wasn't a penalty. I mean, the referees and linesmen had to talk about it for a good minute to determine where he was in the ice when the puck left his stick. That Horvat goal just invigorated the Canucks. And not even a minute later, Miller scores to put the Canucks ahead. And suddenly it's like, oh my goodness, is this really happening?
Miller cares again.
Yeah, it was like, I don't understand. What is this Vancouver Canucks team up to? What are they trying to do? I mean, we look at the shots that we're getting out of the Vancouver Canucks over the course of this game. And, yes, in the second period, they threw 14 shots on net. But into the third period, they had, like we'd seen before, they suddenly seemed to not be able to get the puck towards the net. And Toronto, in the meantime, it's not like they're putting their foot on the brakes or anything. They're still in the gas. They're trying to throw everything they can at Demko. Demko's playing, bubble style hockey. So Miller gets this goal quick after that power play marker, gives the Vancouver Canucks the lead, and suddenly you're like, they might have a chance. Are they really going to go do this? So when Höglander scored that goal, which only he apparently knew went in.
I mean, well, Canucks just force that in by force of will,
Well, I'm like, okay, wait. Like, stop celebrating. Continue playing.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I grew up in soccer, right? Or what you would call football. And what are you taught? Play to the whistle.
It's true.
You don't stop until you hear that whistle. If the puck is in the net,
just celebrate until they pay attention.
Yeah, Niels is like, I scored. I'm celebrating. Blow your darn whistle. And when they went and reviewed it, the call on the ice is confirmed. We have a goal. So which referee called it a goal? It wasn't the referee that was standing at the goal line. Was it the referee down the ice?
I have no idea. I think they just eventually had to stop the play because Canucks had just quit on the game.
Right. Well, and fair enough. But then to say the goal, the call is confirmed is a goal. So that what they're saying is that we weren't overruled. We actually said it was a goal too. So again, weird. Whatever.
Well, yeah, weird hockey. I mean, this will only make sense to Trev Goldie, but there's a thing called umpire's call in cricket, which is quite important because you have to have evidence to overturn the umpire's decision, right?
Sure.
And there was a bit of controversy this week over that. So,
but
it's just funny in a way.
I understand. Okay, no, actually, on that note, I understand that a call needs to be made. It's either this or it's that because it needs to be clear or concise to, return blah, blah, blah. But that referee that was on that goal line did not stop the play. He, in fact, was skating with the puck as it was going up the ice, and someone else blew a whistle.
Yeah, it was a strange one for sure, but
anyway, whatever. I'm not complaining. That shot by Niels had some mustard on it. Hit that back post. But what is that back center post called?
I don't know.
Post, whatever.
Also, that should be the last goal that Nils Höglander scores with his ghost avatar. Because if you go on, the NHL.com
where it's
report,
just the silhouette.
It's just a silhouette because they got headshots taken today. Brock Besser got a new one for some reason.
Well, okay, that's because Brock Besser has been some player for the Rangers for the better part of a season and a half. I want to say, was it Besser? Yeah, I think it's Brock Besser.
Oh, he has a weird. You can't really tell what jersey he's wearing for sure. Anyway, and Michaelis got his done as well. But yeah, Nils Höglander should, for as many goals to come, will have his actual face on them.
So the Vancouver Canucks, having gone and crushed us earlier in the week against the Jets, losing the game that we thought they would win, decided to go and surprise us pleasantly by winning 2 in regulation against the Maple Leafs. So that takes us to the game that we saw just moments ago. And the reason why we're recording this episode at 2 a.m. It's not that late. It feels like it. It's not that late.
Yeah.
The Vancouver Canucks were going up against their nemesis, the Montreal Canadiens, who apparently the Vancouver Canucks struggle to play against, and Tyler Toffoli, the player the Vancouver Canucks wish they had, because, players like him are a dime a dozen. You just don't have an opportunity to get a player like him, And what did we see?
There was enough time.
So, yeah, if only there was enough time. So what did we see from the Vancouver Canucks? Well, they kicked things off with Demko and net. That's good. That's a good sign. Demko obviously being the number one goaltender. I don't think there's any argument, not that there has been any in a while. And 4.5 minutes into the game, Jeff Petrie scores on a power play. I tweeted out at that moment, at least it wasn't Toffoli. And I was thinking moral victory.
I was going to say, that's when I saw that tweet, I thought you were asking for trouble.
Yeah, where I'm sort of cursing the Canucks is what you're getting at?
Yeah, that he was going to score a hat trick after that.
Possibly. But yeah, Petrie scores that goal in the power play early in the first period. And the Vancouver Canucks, unfortunately. Oh, and actually, on that note, the penalty, too many men. Those are always good penalties to take early in the game.
That is the dumbest penalty you can take.
Well, they tried to do it again in the third period. You could argue the Vancouver Canucks got away with one just before they pulled Demko.
To pull the too many men penalty on International Women's Day is just terrible. That's against women's rights, really.
I had not considered that. That's a very fair point. The penalty of having too many skaters on the ice, however, is what cost the Vancouver Canucks that first goal. And Carey Price was Carey Price. The Vancouver Canucks were getting opportunities in the first period. They hit a ton of posts.
Not on the 5-on-3, but they did have opportunities.
There was no 5-on-3.
Oh, okay, sorry. There was no 5-on-3. We don't talk about 5-on-3.
Let's talk about that. I said this in C4 Discord. When Quinn's sort of, I don't know, tripped or slipped or whatever the heck, in my mind, I had envisioned, I can't remember who it was that was on the ice in that moment, but the player from the Canadiens just taking that puck off of Quinn's stick and skating in on a shorthanded breakaway to score a goal to put the Canadiens up by 2. Wouldn't it have been an epitome of the Vancouver Canucks season if they give up a shorthanded goal on a 5-on-3 power play?
Yeah, and honestly, the epitome of that game, that's the kind of game it felt like. Canucks tripping over their own skate laces, hitting the posts. It was a strange game all the way through. Mm-hmm. Carey Price was Carey Price as he's
Demko was Demko.
And Demko was Demko, which, is becoming more and more common, which is great. But, yeah, it did seem like the Canucks were just not going to score.
No, and so we get into the third period where this is again when we talked about Jake contributing. I thought Jake was doing a good job at almost playing that like agitator light role. He drew a penalty against Suzuki.
Yeah.
Right?
Driving to the net, he did it, and when he does, it looks great. It's just we waited so long for that to happen.
But no, you know what? You're right. We waited so long, but if this is what's now allowing for him to do this, the Vancouver Canucks are going to be a better team as a result. He's going to be a better player as a result. The reason I brought up sort of drawing that Suzuki penalty is arguably I felt that what happened to him when he was driving to the net later in the third period was worse than the Suzuki penalty.
I mean, Suzuki didn't like it, that's for sure.
I don't know if it was Petrie or Weber, whomever it was that had their stick, and they let the stick go, but like, how many times have you seen a player put their stick onto between another, the opposition player's legs or on their hip and let go? And that's like, okay, I'm getting a penalty because I've just let the evidence skate with the player. Yeah. The referee just like play on.
Yeah, it seemed to be that they put their whistles away until, the last 5 minutes or so of the third, and then they were calling everything, which Montreal were not too happy about.
No. Well, it was just that one penalty against Suzuki, the tripping penalty, was the one that got called in the third period. But yeah, from there, referees weren't doing anything. I didn't feel that the Vancouver Canucks were going to win this game at that point. Like after they pulled the goaltender, it didn't seem that they were going to find a solution to beat Carey Price. And then Michaela Gaudette's husband decided to take a shot that was so hard it broke my TV.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of emotion in that one.
A lot?
I feel I can say this now because, and I will, make this radio friendly. But yeah, as reported by Michaela Gaudette on the broadcast stream today, and obviously our listeners hear this tomorrow, let's just say Adam Gaudette was pretty relieved, and I think it was
so
something.
He got a foot rub.
Yeah. I think, he was just pretty relieved with that goal.
I got you. That shot was something though. Like I'm just sitting here thinking back to it. He got everything behind that puck. And if Gaudette has that shot available in his arsenal, I want to see it more often. I mean, who was it that scored that goal for the Leafs on Saturday? Similar sort of shot, similar placement on the ice.
On Saturday? John Tavares scored the opener.
Yeah, so that Tavares goal where we thought Demko should have stopped it.
Oh, yeah, we had a long conversation about this in Iota.
Yeah. I feel I'm a Canucks fan, so yeah, there was no way Carey Price could have stopped that shot. But I mean, it had some mustard on it.
For sure, but I will say in Gaudette's defense, it's not like he hasn't been taking chances. I mean, take the snake bitten narrative with a pinch of salt, but he's definitely been putting pucks on net and, hasn't been going in. So definitely deserved that one, I think.
So this takes us to overtime. 3-on-3 hockey. Many people's favorite time of the game. And the Vancouver Canucks and Montreal Canadiens proceeded to play a relatively safe puck possession style game. It wasn't like the craziness sort of 2-on-1 odd man rushes both ways. It was truly a surgical, methodical style of play. Quinn Hughes played about 6 minutes, so the 5-minute period.
Yeah, it did seem like, the Canucks were in control the whole OT, but they also weren't dangerous. So what's the point of being in control if you're not dangerous?
I thought Besser had 2 solid opportunities, one of which Carey Price had to come around and make a
Carey Price.
Yeah. Top-notch save. But you're right. The Vancouver Canucks did carry the play. It's just that it's what we see from this team. There's a lot of perimeter puck movement. And then when they do finally decide to take it to the net, it's not from a place where it feels like it's advantageous, or they get that sort of opportunity, but then for some reason or another, bad puck luck, it catches an edge or something along those lines. But that Besser opportunity, great A chance. Miller actually suddenly, showed some interest. I got a little worried.
Keep Miller on the wing, I guess.
Yeah, I got a little worried on Quinn's first 2-minute shift when he was in the corner, because I'm trying to think, it was a week or so ago when Quinn was in deep, puck goes the other direction, and Brock Besser's left as the sole man back. Yeah,
I guess that's the issue too. Canucks have been caught out on 3-on-3 OT quite a bit this year, so I guess we can't really blame them for the way they played.
And because that period would have been scoreless, it took us to a shootout, one of Anna's favorite moments of any hockey game.
Okay, but I don't like a shootout for shootout's sake. I'm just ready for a shootout once I've had 65 minutes of hockey. That's all.
So it's more to the finality of the shootout as opposed to actually having a shootout.
Yeah. I'd rather not have a shootout at all. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, regulation or a goal in OT. Yeah. But OT doesn't have to last forever.
Yeah.
See.
Unless it's the playoffs, which is fine.
Okay. See, that's the thing is, whereas for me, I just play 3-on-3 forever.
I know that's forever. Honestly most people's opinion, so I'm okay that I'm in the minority on this.
So,
but
and actually, I think if I were to tell you why I'm not a big fan of the shootout, it has everything to do with the type of shots we were seeing tonight. The Vancouver Canucks were slow rolling Carey Price. 2 of 3 Montreal Canadiens players tried to slow roll Demko, one of which who apparently didn't realize he needed to shoot.
Yeah, but ran out of real estate for sure.
For me, it's that slow sort of, is it going to happen? I'm not all that convinced. Horvat's looked good in his efforts in this sort of slow roll, but like I like the excitement, I like the speed, like that. That's what I would want more of in a shootout.
Niels Höglander is going to do something crazy in a shootout this year. Just you wait.
Do you think he's ever going to get an opportunity?
Well, we'll see.
It requires 2 things to happen. 1, the Vancouver Canucks actually need to get the game to a shootout. 2, it has to go deep enough that we see Höglander come out on the shootout.
I know. It's maybe a penalty shot?
Okay, that's possible, but how often are penalty shots called?
I know. Honestly, I've probably seen 2 moments in Canucks games this season. No other games that could be penalty shots, but NHL are just cowards.
See, but the thing is what would you expect Hoggy to do on a shootout attempt or a penalty shot? Probably come in fast, right?
Yeah.
Or if he does come in slow, it's not like he's coming in slow. That puck is going to be on a stick, and he's going to be like
doing
some
all-star stuff,
crazy Matrix thing. Yeah. So I think that's why Hoggy on the shootout or penalty shot's good. I'll agree with you there. It's just I don't have any belief that Green would send them out in the first 3 or even the first 4.
I mean, should we talk about Green's just approach to the lines in general tonight? I mean,
I don't know what Green's doing anymore.
I know, like, it sucks not to have PD. You've got some inexperienced NHL players like Michaela's in that, but I just don't understand how the blender system is the right approach. But then again, they did score with Gaudette playing.
Okay.
Last minute, but
in C4 Discord, I think collectively the group is not keen on Green's roster management right now. But then, is it not fair to point out they've gotten themselves 3 straight wins with Green taking the blender approach? Like, it might not be working, but it's working.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one, but I kind of just want PD to come back and things to be normal again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree because, when you think about players like PD or even, future stars like Höglander, what it is that we know is that the greatest players, they never quit practicing their skills to improve their game. And you shouldn't be any different. You, me, we shouldn't be any different. The ICBA trains thousands of workers every year on everything from Excel spreadsheets to excavating trenches, from personal leadership skills to construction estimating, from fall prevention to effective management skills, and 500 other courses. They're online, on demand, they've got webinars, and even COVID-safe in-person. ICBA has an option for you in your busy lifestyle. So start climbing that corporate death chart by sharpening your skills today. Check out icba.ca/courses.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on that.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And, yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
Looking ahead at the Vancouver Canucks schedule, having gotten this win tonight against the Montreal Canadiens, they face them again on Wednesday night. And then we have a couple nights off before Hockey Night in Canada with a 7 p.m. start against the Oilers. I should point out that Wednesday night game is 8 p.m. We talked about it last show. We'll talk about it this show. And then it's a road trip out east for a couple against the Sens and a couple against the Habs 2 weeks out. We'll talk more about those later on in next week's episode. But first of all, an 8 p.m. Pacific start.
Montreal. I mean, they're not Toronto, but they're the second biggest TV market in Canada, and they're making them stay up till 11? I know they're French, but...
This is the thing that I'm confused by. I understand that there are teams in this league, especially out west. Like, we complain about 4 p.m. starts. Alberta constantly sees 8 p.m. I think there was a game this season where the Jets had to actually start at 9 or something silly like that.
Wasn't that just so COVID would go to bed?
Maybe. Like, the teams out west are often messed around with because of TV markets. I think Vancouver gets some of that out of the Edmontons and the Calgarys, the Winnipegs, though Hockey Night in Canada is what often will dictate. Because you can't go and overlap the Eastern game. But you're right. Montreal having a game out west where it is at 8 p.m. our time is crazy. I'm going to presume it has something to do with TV.
I was going to say, does it have something to do with the Leafs? What time are they playing on Wednesday?
Oh, I didn't actually look at the hockey schedule that in depth.
They're not playing.
Okay,
Oilers are playing at 5, so maybe they're waiting for that to be over, but even that's a bit strange.
So that game's at 5 our time?
Yeah.
So is that a 6 p.m. start in Alberta?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, so this is that must be what's happening then. Is that the 6 p.m. start? Like, what they're trying to do is for TV purposes, they're trying to have but these are regional games. So they should I don't get it. Whatever. We're trying to go in.
Some non-hockey thing on that night because I don't know much that goes on outside of hockey.
On a Wednesday night? I don't think so. Like the Grammys are on a weekend. That's an upcoming thing. But Sportsnet doesn't concern themselves. There's no NFL. NFL is the one sport.
That's what I was going to say. Hockey's like bottom of the pile usually.
Yeah, but like NHL will have games running up other sporting events, except for the NFL. They're like, yeah, no, man, we're going to accept. Even Canadians will start watching the NFL over NHL. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not gonna whine about it. It's 8 p.m. It's different. Thankfully, we're not recording a podcast episode because then that would definitely go not only into overtime, but a shootout with 30 players both ways.
30 players both ways, yeah. I mean, they'd have to take Hoglander would have to shoot.
It'll be, Merrick Malik will come out of retirement and suit up for one of the teams to score the goal to win it. I think he only had one shootout. He might have had more, maybe two, but the goal he scored in, I want to say it was shooter number 20. Was a beauty.
I mean, those are always fun when it gets right down to the most random people.
Yeah, but looking at sort of the next 3 games, at home against the Habs, at home against the Oil, and away to the Sens. I don't know. I don't know what to say here.
I don't either because Ottawa don't seem to be Ottawa anymore.
Well, okay. If I look at the 3 games, if there is a win to be had, you're right. Ottawa doesn't seem to be Ottawa anymore. However, I feel the Vancouver Canucks can beat the Sens.
Yes.
It's a stretch. The Sens are only really, a handful of games, 3 games behind the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, point-wise right now, I want to say it's 5 points. So, yeah, 3 games. But when I look at the Habs, Montreal, first and foremost, we saw their new coaching staff with Ducharme and Burrows, actually. Did Burrows get a thank you video or anything like that?
No, I guess.
Manny Malhotra got one.
Yeah. I mean, he's had one for when he came back as a player.
So did Manny as a player, but Manny got one as a coach. But I guess he was a coach in Vancouver before he became a coach in Toronto.
Yeah, so maybe you don't get a thank you for being a coach somewhere else. Like he got, I guess Manny's one makes more sense. You have to thank him for the different services he offered.
Yeah, I mean
Alex
it's
Burrows
still weird.
really needs to thank us, or thank specifically Dan Murphy for his haircut.
For the haircut.
Today.
That haircut was top notch, and I love that Burr and Murph are rocking the same style.
I can't believe John Garrett stole my joke. Like an hour after I made it too.
But when he steals jokes, the Silver Fox can, make him sound so good. Yeah,
I won't argue with it. I mean, if anything, it was probably Murph just texting him my tweet. So, A2 Murph.
Way to go, Murph. So, I feel points of the Sens. I struggle with the Habs because I still feel that Montreal has Vancouver's number, despite sort of the troubles that they've been facing as of late. And then there's the Oilers, who earlier in the season, and arguably even as recent as a couple of weeks ago, I would have said the Canucks stand a chance. But now the Oil are a hot team. Like, think about this. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about how it was like Toronto, Edmonton, Montreal. It's now Toronto, Edmonton, Winnipeg. Montreal starting free fall. Calgary is in a weird spot. They, in turn, have also made coaching changes. Again, I'm not entirely sure the Vancouver Canucks are aware you're allowed to do this, make changes during the season. Montreal did it. Apparently, Calgary's like, oh, you can do that, so we'll do it too.
I mean, it's a strange one, but who has the longest winning streak in the league, in the division? The Vancouver Canucks.
That's true. Winners of their last 3. Although it does suck that they gave up 1 point to Montreal. They did at least get a point closer.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, because it's okay giving up a point to Toronto and Edmonton because they're going to finish above us no matter what. But yeah, it's really
and we've talked
Winnipeg,
about this
Montreal,
before.
Calgary.
Yeah, those are the teams that Vancouver is currently in a fight for to get a playoff spot. I'd almost suggest that Winnipeg is sort of stretching it out of reach. Right now the Jets have 4 games in hand on the Vancouver Canucks, yet currently have 7 points on them. So I don't necessarily see, even within a streak, that the Canucks catch up to the Jets unless the Canucks actually take more games off the Jets.
Yeah,
on top
you're probably right.
Right. So really, I think the Vancouver Canucks are currently fighting Montreal and Calgary for that 4 spot. And obviously trying to keep the Sens from doing crazy Senators things. I don't think the Sens stand a chance. Let's be honest. Their playoff hopes are done. But when you look at the math, the Vancouver Canucks would have to go on a hell of a run to find themselves into the playoffs. And this is not me trying to be negative. It's just the nature of a season where every game is a divisional game. And while in typical seasons, losing one or getting a loser point sort of still helps you move forward. Obviously, losing doesn't, but losing against an Eastern-based team doesn't hurt you as much. Now, losing against Montreal, it hurts doubly as hard. So I don't know if the Vancouver Canucks are a playoff team. And that fact that they're currently in this spot where, as we know, they look at things day to day, and they might go and make some silly choices. So let's actually talk a little bit about silly choices. Currently in the crease, you've got Demko, obviously, is the clear-cut number 1. We knew this going into this week, and we know this for sure coming out of it. What is the chance that the Vancouver Canucks do something so silly?
I mean, I think they're pretty smart with Holtby. Obviously, they're paying him quite a lot to be a backup, but also
and
it's
cash money. They're paying a lot more next year because
it's Braden
I don't
Holtby.
see Seattle
but
taking them.
They may do. I don't think there's a wealth of goaltender riches. I was listening to friends of the show, Sound of Hockey, and a very interesting Jake Allen, and I'm just like, wow, really?
Well, okay, I would actually
cheaper,
look
though.
also in in Las Vegas with the return of Marc-Andre Fleury that Vegas is in it. Like, I think there are better there might be a couple of better choices that will be available after this season as opposed to going into it. I think anyone would have said, "Oh, Holtby is the guy they take," because we know the Canucks are going to allow Holtby to hit the market. In fact, one might suggest that the Canucks knew this going into it and wanted to make Seattle think long and hard, and that's why they went and threw, the cash contract as they did at him to pay him more next season. On top of the fact that makes this year a little bit easier to pay because money out of the owner's pockets, not as much. But when we think about the crease, I'm not trying to say that Demko gets traded. But boy, could he possibly get you something with a GM that simply looks at things day to day.
I mean, we're not in a rebuilding phase, and if you take out Demko, then you're just back to square one, and it just, with the defense as it is, you cannot reset your goalie again. They did it before.
Holtby's not getting you anything. No one's going to take Holtby. Your hope is Seattle takes Holtby, but I don't foresee that happening, and that doesn't sort of talk about this year. It's just an interesting situation that we see the Vancouver Canucks in. I don't think they're going to trade Demko. I don't think Jim would even be that silly, but
I also think that the Holtby situation is not as bad as it seems this week. I do think he will be a better backup. And I also think we won't see that much of him.
Yeah. More time with
Canucks
Clark.
do have a friendlier schedule.
That's true.
Than the first couple months. I mean, Canucks is 5 games up on a couple of teams in their division. It's crazy. But they do have a friendlier schedule, so I think we'll see less of him. But I do think that Tuesday's game was not a full reflection of Holtby's abilities. I think Demko's clear number one. He's performing well, but I just don't think it's all that bleak.
Yeah. And then we have Showcase Jake, obviously getting showcase minutes, being on the first line-ish. I mean, we don't actually know who the first line of the Vancouver Canucks is right now, but he's scoring goals, he's contributing, and you could argue that he's got his butt in gear.
Yeah. I mean, this should not be the first trade deadline they're taking calls on Jake and shopping Jake. If you can get something for Jake, do it. Really do it.
I don't disagree, but could Jake's play as of late cause the Canucks management team to maybe ask for more than Jake is worth?
Yes. And that's an issue, but I'm sure that was true when his play was not that great as well.
You're right. You're probably right.
He's signed for more than he's worth. Come on, Chris. Canucks management and fans and overvaluing Jake. Name me a more iconic duo.
I could see the Oilers, giving the Canucks a call and Jim's there. So I won't ask for McDavid and Draisaitl, but either one of them would be enough.
Jack Eichel.
And we'll throw in Louis Eriksson as a sweetener. Oh, Jim. But yeah, the Vancouver Canucks are in a position where, as we get closer to the trade deadline, which again is so long ahead that we don't have to worry about it quite yet. Who knows what will happen? It's just the scary part is as the Canucks start to string wins together. And I can't remember who it was on Twitter that said this, but I'm sure there's also a number of people that have said something similar. We've seen this story before. The Canucks start to turn on the Jets and race themselves to that position just outside looking in. And in turn, because of how the NHL is structured, those teams also tend to try to be buyers to find a way to get into the playoffs. The Canucks are not buyers. If they win every game the rest of the way, I'd still sell. If anyone was buying.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we said that last week. I've seen it 10 times on Twitter. It's such a classic Canucks narrative, but the only activity the gym should be up to is selling. The only buying / contract activity he should be up to is re-signing Travis. Not that he has the power to do that anymore, but
yeah. Well, we're going to get into Jim in a little greater detail in a quick moment. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast and CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
I'm going to presume that all of you, and I mean every single one of you, has seen the Jim Benning press conference that we were graced with last week. If for some reason you haven't, go watch it. I will apologize to you in advance for subjecting you to a whole lot of what? Like, how bad was it? You had house radio saying, that was something. You had house radio interviewing him saying, no, Jim, you have not yet answered my question. Jim told us that the Vancouver Canucks this season have had a heck of a time because, there was a pandemic. And apparently, this pandemic hasn't really hit other teams like it hit the Vancouver Canucks. Oh, they also had a flat cap. And you see, the flat cap hasn't hit other teams like it's hit the Vancouver Canucks. And you got to take things day to day. And as much as you might suggest that players were saying there weren't communication, no. It's just they decided to take deals that were better than the ones we offered. Apparently, the offer to Stetcher was hockey tape and sticks because that's what Detroit's paying him. Again,
the amount of cell phones were incredible.
He's not okay. Let's give this to Jim. First of all, what the actual F, Jim? Second of all, he's not good in front of a camera.
Never has been. And you know what? He doesn't have to be good in front of the camera for all I'm concerned, so long as he's good at the job that he is in. And as a fan, I have yet to see what good he is doing. I'm the guy that gives him credit for his draft acumen. I understand he might not have gotten all his guys. There's common debate about whether or not he wanted Petey. He apparently wanted Glass, but I'm willing to give him the Petey pick because at the end of the day, he's technically the guy who the buck stops with. But that then goes and has me short circuit because the leader of an organization, leader of any business, is not thinking day to day. They think in strategic sense, big picture stuff. Jim's sitting there playing checkers. Not even Minesweeper. That's too complex. It's checkers. Yeah. It's day to day. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me. There was just so many things that were crazy. And we know Jim, as we said, he's bad at PR, which is maybe why you have someone who's really good at PR. Remember when Trevor did all the interviews? Even when it was bad, it sounded a lot better coming from Trevor's mouth because he sold it.
He did. And, on Eyes on 650 with Jamie Dodd, he had sort of asked, what would I want to see? And I'm like, at very least, I would have wanted to have seen Jim acknowledge what's gone wrong. Like, hey, we had a plan, or we have a plan. Here's what's not gone right for us. Yeah, we got to learn from these mistakes. Look at Mike Gillis. Mike Gillis, people would suggest he was arrogant or overconfident, and that may be true. But he owned mistakes. Yeah, we didn't get that one right. But his overconfidence, we didn't get that one right. But yeah, we're going to get it a whole lot righter next time around.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy to me that his quote-unquote excuses for getting stuff wrong were either things that everyone had to deal with or things that made him look really bad. I mean, you thought running out of time was a bad excuse, but yeah, just saying, oh, other people did better than us in the off season, and offered the players better deals. Yeah, well then,
lots of teams have bad contracts. They do. There's no mistaking that. But it seems the Canucks contract problems, their bad contracts are like extra bad. And when you have a bad contract, you go out and you get another not so good contract to ensure the albatross is always there. And what I'm inferring is you look at like Louis Eriksson's deal, it turned out to be not as good because of the length of term that he had provided. Louis gave a couple of good seasons with the Vancouver Canucks before the wheels fell off that bus. We now have a contract in Tyler Myers that is a Louis Eriksson special, is it not? And there is already concern that this deal may not be the one that the Vancouver Canucks really want a couple of years into it. So, if Jim Benning is your guy and he's hanging an albatross like this around your organization, I'd have to think that the Aquilini family is saying, like, what the actual? But moreover, House Radio, and again, I call Sportsnet 650 House Radio simply because they are obviously the rights holder, and there's always this belief that they're obviously wanting to manage the relationship. They were taking the Canucks to task, and many of their own personalities were suggesting Jim is done.
Yeah, from thank you, Jim, to Jim is done. You really have done a number if that's what the radio personalities are saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're so right about the contracts. It's not just Louis. There's like spending so much money on your bottom line, signing Tyler Myers to that huge contract. There's the fact that we'll look at the two contracts that we're paying out for people to do nothing. Will be Louis, not our fault. No one's fault, apart from the leagues, I guess. And Ryan Spooner, I know that's such a small amount of money in comparison, but just it's such a good example of Canucks just getting it wrong. They had Sam Gagner, they buried him in the minors. Well, they traded that bad contract for Ryan Spooner, who they then bought out.
Sven Berchi is buried in the minors. I mean,
which almost everyone else finds mystifying.
Yeah,
you're really saying that Sven Berchi is really not capable of providing anything to this team? Don't get me wrong, I get he's not a player of the future and he's not necessarily worth his cap hit, but
I think that's it. I think Sven, this season specifically, it's a numbers game. They actually save more money by burying him than they can afford to bury elsewhere.
Because of all the other big clumsy pieces.
Yeah, I mean it is nuts. And again, this is Jim and Jim's regime. And if Jim is still the guy in charge next year, I'm going to be, I would say, genuinely surprised. I may consider eating shorts live on air because that's how shocking it would be.
And the other thing that sort of seemed to be in the background of the interview the entire time was how involved ownership are. And
gosh, yeah.
And I'm just that's not a good thing, Jim. They're keeping an eye on you. They're babysitting you.
I talk to them every day. I have a really good relationship, and
it's just no, you shouldn't be talking to the owners every day.
In fairness, word has it that the Vancouver Canucks ownership is much more hands-on than the ownership groups of other teams.
Yes.
So they may be keeping an eye on Jim as much as they would have been keeping an eye on the next general manager that may work for them, which poses another problem. If you want to become a general manager in the NHL, do you want the Vancouver Canucks to be your first team? And then two, if you're an existing general manager in the NHL, do you really want to work for the Vancouver Canucks? Presuming ownership is that hands-on.
Yes, and I think it's pretty well known that that's the case in Vancouver, but I do think it's stepped up a bit this season. Everyone seemed to say that he's pretty handcuffed on any major decisions.
When Jim was talking about the trade deadline, I'm not even considering the trade deadline, we're taking things day to day. Part of me wanted to suggest that the reason he's not thinking about the trade deadline is he's told, don't worry about it. We're taking care of it for you. Take it easy. Put your feet up. We'll help you out here, man.
You play with this Fisher-Price phone.
Yeah, pretty much. Which, unfortunately, is another problem. Rumor has it the scouting department, the majority of the scouts for the Canucks have no idea what the plan is going forward. They have contract issues. You've got a head coach who's currently a lame duck head coach. The Vancouver Canucks on the business end of the hockey operations is currently in a shambles.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the whole office side of the Canucks is in shambles. I know a lot of teams have had to lay people off, but Canucks are pretty much operating on skeleton staff, as is. Yeah, in terms of media, social media, in terms of marketing, all of that stuff. So I think all around it's not. Yeah, I don't see how you could work for the Canucks and look around and be confident in anything, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, a week from now, who knows? Maybe things will look different. Jamie Dodd on Sportsnet 650 during Canucks Central Saturday had sort of brought this up, and I believe the show prior to him, Mizzy Fair might have been the one who said it. They were curious if Jim would be here that time next week, which means that sometime this week he might find himself looking for other opportunities. If the Vancouver Canucks were to do that, it would happen like late afternoon on a Friday. Always to avoid although there's really no media circus when everything's done by Zoom.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just like if you only have one channel of putting stuff out, there's no reporters hanging around the rink that would be harassing you, but it's also hard to avoid questions when...
True that. Well, we're curious what your thoughts were about the Jim Benning presser, and how can you share them with us? Well, the first way to go about that is by dropping us a message on the C4 text line. You can send a text message, or you can leave a voicemail by calling or texting 604-200-6201. That's 604-200-6201. Or just go on your computer, speakpipe.com/C4 podcast. You can record it on your computer or your phone and drop us a message there. If it's a good one, we'll include it in an upcoming show and provide you our feedback. And another way to go and drop us that information in real time is by joining C4 Discord. And C4 Discord is obviously the greatest place in the world to have a conversation about the Vancouver Canucks, the NHL, and anything else you might want by going to discord.io/C4 podcast.
You know what I'd really love to hear on the...
Have you signed up to the C4 weekly newsletter yet, Anna?
Yes, of course. What I was going to say is what I'd love to hear on the C4 hotline is everyone's just best thank you, Jims. Thank you, Jim, for hamstringing the Canucks cap, etc. They can be genuine, they can be sarcastic, but I'd love to hear what Canucks fans are thankful to Jim for.
Speaking of thank you, Jim, what did you think of my my dance mix version of Thank You, Jim?
I mean, it was better than the original.
Yeah, I had a little time on my hands and decided to be silly. I'll include it in the newsletter for
it's
those
good
to
fun,
check it
guys.
out. Speaking of which, if you haven't done so already and signed up to the C4 weekly newsletter, just go to bit.ly/the C4 newsletter, where you will learn crazy things, such as who our next guest will be. That's right. If you happen to be a subscriber of our newsletter, you will know that John Jang will be joining us for our next show. He was a former host over at Sportsnet 650 with Sat Shaw. He is now moved on to CNW, but he's going to be joining us to talk about the Vancouver Canucks, give us some of his more intelligent takes on the organization, on the play as of late, and everything else. And if you have any questions for John that you would want for us to ask, that's where the C4 text line comes in handy, and that's where C4 Discord comes in handy. You can also tweet us at the C4 Podcast on Twitter and obviously Facebook.com/C4 Podcast. So again, get involved. We'll do our best to represent you, your thoughts, your needs, because we are the longest running Canucks podcast for a reason. It's because we are here for you, the fans. The only one. All the rest of the Canucks podcast don't care about you.
Wow.
I don't know. There might not be truth to that.
No, I don't
think I said it.
But yeah, that's never stopped us before, so.
True. Yeah, when has the truth gotten in the way of anything we've ever said? But what final words of wisdom do you have for all of our listeners there, Anna?
I feel like we've complained a lot on an episode where Canucks just won quite a few games, 4 out of 5 games in a week.
Damn you, Canucks.
2 against the Leafs. So, damn you, Jim. Thank you for making this podcast so negative. But what I really hope for is that Elias Pettersson comes back and joins the fun. because, as I said in my rundown notes, no PD, no party.
No PD, no party. That's true. Although there has been a party without PD. So could you argue that PD's now the problem? I don't know. Something to talk about next episode.
PD, mo party? I don't know. Mo PD, mo problems.
No PD, mo party. That would be what it's currently.
I was thinking more positively.
Okay. My final words of wisdom from me is, keep holding on to faith. The Vancouver Canucks are apparently turning things around. They're on the streak. Lou Brown's getting excited. If anyone remembers the movie Major League, there's probably a cutout of Jim Benning, and they're currently peeling off portions of his suit. I don't know. That's what they did in Major League.
I forgot that part.
It'd be kind of weird if that actually was happening, but that little thought bubble, it's like, but he wouldn't say like you stink. It would be like,
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, on behalf of Anna Forsyth at A46303, myself, Chris at Lightforce, signing this episode off the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with those words you've been waiting for me to say for the longest time, at least the last 5 minutes. We out.